Right, this is actually quite a late night video, so I do apologise for the lack of light in here and whatever. It's just the IMAX camera, not very light sensitive. This is one of the older ones. The new ones have fabulous new HD cameras on there, but this one is whatever. Anyway, it's about 11 o'clock at night now, so I'm going to answer a couple more of vinyl questions. Firstly, I'm going to talk about my white belt because I'm really very surprised at how noticeable the improvements are on it. They don't really change the overall character of the sound. What it does, somehow along the line, it's managed to sound like it's making the job of actually turning the turntable platter much easier. As a result, the noise floor seems to have dropped. It was quite surprising really how much people put up with in terms of, I suppose, even what you'd call fairly unobtrusive noise from motors and things like that, and how much that contributes to the sound. As soon as it's taken away, you notice it. The records sound much clearer. Stereo imaging is superb for my speakers. Yes, they do image well, but I'm sure that other speakers will image better. But now, you know, there's a great improvement with that. And also things like bass and treble are much clearer. So yeah, that is under £20, a penny shy of £20 the white belt is. So if you've got any Rega turntable, apart from, as I said in the video, the first Rega Planet turntable from the very early 70s, get a white belt. Especially if you haven't replaced your belt for a number of years, buy one. They really are good value and will perk up your system. Just a little, but enough for you to know that it's there. Right. Secondly, I've had a couple of questions about what's called VTA adjustment on turntables. Now, for those people that don't know, and here I will need a piece of paper and a pen, and I'm afraid I'm going to have to do crappy drawings. Right? I'm not a superb drawer at all, and I'm not a superb video maker either, so you're just going to have to put up with my crappy drawings here. But I will show you what we mean by VTA. Just bear with me a moment. To myself with the necessary drawing tools. Okay, so this is VTA. All right, vertical tracking adjustment it stands for. Right, I can just about see what I'm doing here. Now down here, all right, the cartridge, beg your pardon, just hang on a sec. The actual cartridge is here. Okay, that's the cartridge just there. All right, the record is down here, this horizontal line down here, and the cantilever, that's the bit that actually has the stylus tip on the end of it. That should form an angle of 22.5 degrees when placed against the record, approximately. All right. The arm should appear parallel to the record. All right. Only by the naked eye. There is no real great way of measuring these things, and anybody that says there is too obsessive about the whole thing. So just, you know, leave them alone. Just don't worry about it. All right. Now, Rega, I can only really quote from Rega because they're really the only turntables I've used apart from a Goldring I. They actually say don't worry about VTA at all. All right, it's a bit of a pointless thing to worry about. I'll give you the reasons why in a minute. Some of them are far too technical for me to really understand. Most other manufacturers give you some way of adjusting the VTA. And it's usually by some sort of screw and height adjustment thing at the rear of your tone arm where the tracking dial and the counterweight and that sort of thing are. And you lift up the back of the arm, and that should make sure that the arm is totally parallel and that this cantilever and record angle supposedly is perfect, but it will never be that. And this is Rega's argument. All right. If all records were perfect, they were all the same thickness, which they're not. I've got albums by the Pet Shop Boys where the records are paper thin. I've got other LPs by the likes of Ella Fitzgerald, mono records from like the 50s and what have you, that are hugely thick and feel far more substantial, by the way, than a lot of the modern 240 gram reissues of albums and things, which are still quite thick but not as heavy and as substantial as Ella's and other mono records that I have. Also, it assumes that no record is ever going to be warped, and I've got, you know, records like my Blonde on Blonde album by Bob Dylan, which is like a merry-go-round, and you know, I might put it on YouTube one day. It's like watching you know, the stylus tracking it is like, yeah, it's like watching one of those waltzers at the fair. It really is that bad. It can still track it and track it very, very well indeed. All of those things will have an effect on this angle. Right? A thick record will make the angle less. A thin record will make the angle more. Now, yes, if you've got infinitely variable VTA adjustment, you could spend your whole life just playing around with that adjustment for every single record you play. And, you know, if you choose to do that sort of thing, then good luck to you. However, I like playing music. I just like to be able to plonk a record on the turntable and play the damn thing, all right? And therefore, VTA that's approximately correct is fine, all right? Now, as far as Rega's argument goes, they say that if you, because like my Ortofon turntable, this is where it's been sort of picked up on, my Ortofon cartridge, not turntable, my cartridge, was just a tiny little bit bigger in the head shell, which most manufacturers would be able to say, yes, you can adjust the VTA at the back of your arm so that you can get the thing parallel, and mine wasn't parallel. It was ever so slightly pointing up a little bit at the end. All right. So what? It didn't matter. It still sounded absolutely brilliant. All right. On non-Rega decks, where because Rega make well, a lot of other decks use these Rega arms. They are superb arms. They are eminently tweakable, especially the very basic arm, the RB250. I think it's now the RB251 or something it's called now because it's had a slight tweak to it. But that arm is used on decks that are many times the price of the P2 that the arm was originally designed for. If you want to use it on that, then and you are worried about VTA, you can get like they're like little discs that you, when you unscrew the arm at the back, you lift the arm out and you place these little discs, they're called spacers, in, and you can get different thicknesses depending on the cartridge that you intend to use, because the cartridge size, as I say, does have a bearing on VTA. It's all getting very arcane, isn't it, really? Does anyone, you know, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If you're if you really are that concerned, then the best thing that you can do is just add a slight bit of extra, maybe say about 0.5 to 0.1 of a gram of extra tracking force on your cartridge, and that should, you know, straighten things out a little bit. I didn't have to when I used my Ortofon 2M Blue cartridge. I was just happy with it as it was. The really critical things when you're setting up a record deck are A, to get the tracking weight correct, B, something you should never have to do, something your dealer should do when they set the cartridge up, to make sure that the cartridge is aligned properly in the shell. That means that it's actually pointing inwards at the right angle, so that because records are actually cut in a straight line, like that, okay, like that going across. The cartridge, actually, if you were to sit there and stare at it, you'd actually see that it's trying its very best to trace a straight line along. And if your cartridge is slightly out in your shell, if your stylus, for example, and this is where you get special protractors here, but there's the record again, okay, your cartridge should look parallel like that. Again, that's my very bad drawing of the cantilever, okay. If the cartridge isn't aligned correctly, which is a precision measurement best left to an expert, it will start to point more like, that's a very bad warped Bob Dylan record, pretend. Alright, it will start to look slightly like my top drawing there, where it's pointing slightly to one side or to other. So that's an important thing. But and a really obvious thing, although a lot of people will not see it as such, get a spirit level and check that the surface that you're putting your turntable on is level. Some turntables have adjustable feet as well, so make sure that they're set up so that the whole thing is completely level on a solid support. Okay, I've got a specialised hi-fi rack. It wasn't a particularly expensive one as far as hi-fi racks go. It's really seen better days now, and maybe one thing that I ought to think about at some point in upgrading. Again, the materials and stuff that's made on will affect the sound quality. I used to balance my amplifier. I think I had an old IKEA table, and I just put the components side by side on it, and I think I balanced something or other on a chair at one point. And no, the minute that I got that hi-fi table, it's like a lead weight. Trying to actually carry that from the shop back to my vehicle at the time was just hell on earth. But yes, they are really worth getting. So get yourself, really solid support, especially for a turntable. It does make all the difference in the world. All right, don't worry about stupid things like VTA. All right, yes, cartridges are slightly different sizes, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter all that much. There are other things that have a far more significant bearing on the sound. Okay, now if you can bear the fact that I've stopped ranting now, then we can all go to bed in peace. Bye.